loud.
Well, welcome in, ladies. We are here to share in how our time has been so far with the Worthy book. Any takeaways, aha moments, or just anything that's really been impactful for you from our start time and where we're currently at, and then how the book study itself may have been a resource for you and giving you the opportunity to share in the impact of a book study versus doing things on our own. So, Becky, did you have anything else to engage with for that?
No, well, we're talking about Worthy by Jamie Kerna Lima, in case you're like, what book is it? Jamie Kerna Lima's book, Worthy. And we aren't thoroughly through it. We're to part 3, which is about transforming. We're just diving into that. So really we're halfway through the content of this book. And I personally continue to dive deeper. We are in our book study, we do engage with her workbook as well, which has been super powerful. Me personally, I'm someone that when I engage with what I'm hearing and learning about, I want to be putting it into action with putting pen to paper and start implementing it. That's how I best learn, is like getting into it. So her workbook has been really powerful, even when it's something that I think is, oh, that's such an easy question. And then I go back like 10 minutes after I keep going and I'm like, oh, I think I just lied to myself about this workbook, and the depth that goes into the internal conversation about self-worth, and how the group discussion and having the space to like share our own experiences, chapters in, has been powerful, because it helps bring up added things that we're not thinking about, or at least I don't think about when I'm reading it myself. And then the discussions have the trigger point of like, oh yeah, that's something that I can really resonate with in my own experience, in how it's knocked my confidence down. And I've noticed how that trickled down to maybe my self-worth and the way that I hold myself a little differently. So that added layer of having discussion has just been very powerful overall. Any of the book studies, but this one specifically, this is one that I wanted to bring to the table because it was on my shelf for so long. And I knew that I wasn't feeling fully worthy myself, and the power of holding space for myself and other people to share, I think, is just always transformational. So yeah.
I just wanted to say that for me, reading the book is one thing, but being engaged with everybody on the book study has been really the most powerful thing. Hearing stories, hearing ideas about how we perceive ourselves. And the sections that I really enjoyed the most were the big lies. They were so telling for me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's me. And just absolutely love the book. And I'm looking forward to catching up with everybody, because I'm behind a little bit, but totally. I mean, even the definition of what self-worth is was important to understand. It's not just self-confidence. It's much more than that. So that's what I got to say at the moment.
I just wanted to say that the group part is the biggest part. I mean, I read the book, but intellectually I got it. But when we start talking about it, it goes so much deeper. And to hear the other people's stories, like Carol said, and the aha moments that other people got, sometimes, I miss the nuances of things. And then I hear somebody else talk about it and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't think of that, right? And then for me, I've done a lot of counseling, a lot of work on myself to get me to where I am today. I clearly am not done. So I'm working on the rest of me. But what came to me today, just this, like while I'm sitting here listening to you guys, this quote jumped out at me on page 211. To be beautiful means to be yourself. You don't need to be accepted by others. You need to accept yourself. And I think that's been hard for me because I've always been different, and people would make excuses for me because of whatever they thought was not right about me. And so I always felt uncomfortable and awkward because I didn't know when I was going to have that moment. And because I didn't know what it was I was doing that was causing it to happen. But the older I get, the more content I become with myself and the less I care about what other people think. And I'm growing to understand that I am uniquely made. God, and I think in the book she talks about that. You're the first, right? She says that we're the first, and we're in the Bible it says we can't all be eyes and noses, and we're all different. We all have our gifts. So I'm just trying to figure out what my gifts are and to work in my gifts. And then the last thing I want to say before I have to jump off, I'll try to stay as long as I can, is one thing that came to me was that my sister was fully evolved and she was all into this stuff. And quite frankly, I didn't appreciate her while she was here and what she was bringing to the table because I was too busy judging her and not understanding. And I wish I could go back and change that. I can't. She's not here for me to do that. But I speak to her because I know where she's at. And I know that the reason that this book came to me is because she wanted me to get the message. She wanted me to learn. So, I say this a lot. When the student is ready, the teacher will come. Apparently, I've been a lot ready. So I'm so grateful for the book and for the community and for the conversations, and mostly for the lack of judgment that happens in this group, which is so important to feel safe to have these conversations. So thank you.
I think that's a big part of the OP group is you can show up and you will feel loved and supported, and there's no judgment. And I know many times, where you come to a new group and it feels a little cliquey and it feels like it might not be the right fit, or you have to walk on a few eggshells first. And I'm so glad it feels like home and like you belong into the area. So thank you, Leah, for sharing that space as well and making that what it is.
I haven't read much of the book either, but I have perused the workbook and looked through that and see that probably will be an additional, even if I only did the workbook, because it really is self-reflective. And just the key takeaways that it talked about, self-worth versus self-confidence, external validation versus intrinsic work, foundation of self-worth. I've been on that transformation since I turned 65, so that's been a while ago, working at that, and I'm not done yet, and won't be until I'm called home. And just the idea that it comes down to all the work that I do with my clients, and Kelly and I do, it comes down to self-love. And self-love is intrinsically connected to self-worth and recognizing our value. And that the foundation of that self-worth is actually what Leo is talking about, is our God-created soul that is absolutely unique to us, and the struggle that we may have been making in our lives to fit in and be like everyone, when actually we were sent here to be unique and to share that uniqueness by loving others, but loving ourselves first and accepting that about ourselves. So just the little bit that I've perused around in the book and looking at the workbook, I think, you know, I believe, as Leah does, that the teacher comes when the student is ready, and I'm ready to magnify my self-worth even more in order to be of more service to others. So it was, you know, thank you for letting me eavesdrop, not standing in the dripping rain, but to listen in and feel of your, you know, your growth and transformation as you've worked together on this concept of self-worth versus self-confidence, etc. So just in the last 7 minutes, I have received enough to make my time here worthwhile. So thank you.
So good. I also think that when we come into a book study, we have different expectations and different reasonings why we come into a space and why we want to read a book. And when we come in together and we hear others having the same struggle, it validates a few things, but it also gives that support that we need. And it's early on, you may feel more confident in, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to grow. And then in the end, you might feel and see that, wow, this really made a difference for myself, but I saw some growth in other people that were in the group. And now I can be their cheerleader as they're continuing their space. And when we first started this book, part 1, there was chapter 3 that talked about how we are not crazy. We didn't fall off our rocker. We're not the weird duck out. It's just that we're meant to do this project for the first time. And thinking back to all the people that have passed and generations that have created things, and their invention was the first thing, you know, that came through, and we're still using it today. They had to be that first person to think of that. And I'm pretty sure people thought they were nuts. So it's in good company.
The probably unique experience with the book group because I'm the one that is hasn't been reading, but I still show up and get so much from the group and hopefully contribute. And I have big ahas, and I've shared in the community several times that I speak to think, and so that space is still provided for me to speak and have these ahas and be supported by the members in the group and and you know, to have that space held for me, even when I come unprepared. I'm always wanted regardless if I've read, and I get so much from the sharing that the other members of the group give me, and yeah, and so I'm grateful for the group and participating, and I really do want to read the book. I think it's an interesting uh or you know, maybe obvious a reason of why I haven't started reading the book, because I was so excited to read it. I even listened to the introduction. I bought the workbook. I, you know, bought the book, and then I kind of got frozen in the process or the excuse if I'm too busy or whatever it might be, to not read. And that kind of comes up with one of the ahas I had today of, this deep rooted, belief that I have about myself. And, just realizing that, um, there's some work to do there. And yet I haven't been reading this book. So, yeah.
And knowing that you can hop in at any point and start the chapter that we're in, and you'll still get and receive exactly what you need.
Well, Kelly was talking, I was just thinking too about how powerful this book is because it has an audio book, has the physical book, and it has the workbook. And me, I've only been a reader. I've not been a book study person. So to have the tools to be able to do all those things, and then journaling. I've never journaled on a book I've ever done before, And so I've learned a lot about how to read a book other than just reading it and absorbing. I tend to think of myself as a book absorber. I just sort of take the words in, and I've been doing that my whole life. But this has been a whole new way and a whole new way of thinking about and then participating. So there's like so many ways that this book allows you to engage itself. And I love that.
I think for myself in that, Carol, is if you learn better in a group setting, the group study is really good. If you learn from listening to the audible, that's a tool. If you read and reread and read again, that's another tool. But when you use all of them together, it can be enhancing any kind of output that you receive as you walk through your own journey in it. And the process for myself was I listened to the audible as I look at the book.
I love that.
And it keeps me focused when I'm got a little bit of time to walk through that. And especially if I fall asleep when I'm reading the book on my own. But to have that noise and then to listen to the audible when I'm got some free time, but I might not be able to read and follow along in the book. It's like the added space. And when I think about things that I've listened to through the years, songs or other people's talks and speeches, there is an audible sense of value to it. So I'm so grateful that we have the audio version and that they match. They aren't different from the printed version.
So I'll share one of or a couple, I guess, of the key things that really drew me into this book. And having, in general, discussion around self-worth. And one of the things right away that I picked up from that I was really needing to put focus on for my growth was that ownership of what I'm here to steward, my vision, my purpose, my dream, that it's no one else's, and that there is a level of responsibility for that ownership, instead of waiting for someone else or hoping that something's going to change, taking the initiative and making sure that I'm I have that self-belief, was something that I found was, I won't say lacking, but like lessened, then it needs to be stronger. Like I needed that strength in that. So one of the things at the end of chapter 2 in the book I had highlighted was changing your relationship with rejection and failure is one of the greatest tools to restoring a strong identity and belief in yourself. And I resonate with rejection more than failure. Like I'm someone that definitely keeps giving it a shot or going again. I will look at all of the ways that it hasn't worked, but say there's still some other way. It's if it's not removed from my life, then it's not done. And but rejection, on the other hand, was where I was finding my challenge. So, looking at this book right away from a perspective of, oh, I'm grown or growing stronger in one side, but then there is still a dynamic of identity that instantly I was like, oh, that's somewhere that I could use more support, more acknowledgement for myself to see like, oh, there are some good things, but I was beating myself up and looking at lack more than some other frame of mind with rejection versus, failure. So I think that that's one of the key things also with book studies, like what we do in the community, is that again, another example of how words really matter, right? Like one word may not sit with me and I may not care about it. I may not have a reaction, inside of myself, and it may not be a big deal, but then there may be another word that really is like, oh yeah, that's it. That's giving me resistance. And that's something that I can pay attention to and become more aware of. And that's where the story piece and the experiences really come into play, that we don't know what we don't know until we know it. So when we hear other people sharing and being vulnerable and opening up to highlight, a specific piece that really is still sitting with you after you read it or listen to it or do the workbook, it kind of gives us a new perspective to just try on and be like, yeah, that kind of rubs me the wrong way too. And then you're able to address it. So just, yeah, the understanding about rejection and the key piece of that, and her talking a lot in the book about how that's really protection, and that was the frame of mind that I started to take with in the workbook. She helps you reframe whatever that word is for you that's coming up. And for me, it was rejection, and reframing that to be protection. Yeah, keep going. It's not it yet. If it's not a no, then it's just like not yet or not this way. But there's more ways that I haven't tried yet. I mean, what was it? Thomas Edison, who, 1,000 different ways or whatever before he figured it out. So if it's still there, keep going.
And I'm glad you brought up chapter 2. I like that one a lot too, because it brought to mind destiny. And I think the example in there was, when you're not invited to something, that you're not meant to be there. And, for me to share that forward with my kids, to recognize that it's not a personal thing, where we've been conditioned to look at those opportunities as missed opportunity. And gosh, that sucks. I didn't get to go. And how come? What's wrong with me? And recognizing that that's still something, it floats to the surface now and then, where you're like, wait, what? And then you're like, oh, it's gotten a little bit more comforting. Like, oh, it's just not meant to be there. It happens all the time in our lives, certain opportunities or invites happen, and it's just random that you're with certain people at one moment and somebody gets concert tickets. Well, everybody there is going to go, but you weren't there. So it just naturally, it's not a personal, like, oh yeah, we selectively chose these people. But I think that that chapter, you know, is just one indication of how all of the chapters here, they all can resonate with all of us so well. So as I would read, you know, chapter by chapter, I'm amazed at how much she does just continue to carve away at so many of our vulnerabilities. Like this more recent one that I'm in is with the being caged in, and recognizing that the people in our lives do that, whether they're your family or friends. You do find comfort in some of that because it's familiar, and then also too, you recognize the people that do want you to go beyond and, you know, find your potential and thrive in it, that they're outside of it, and you know how to perceive, you know, when you think people should be thinking of your best interest because they're your family, or you know, somebody who has been close to you forever, but not necessarily the case. So I will admit too that there's been a few conversations where, because the material and the information that we all share, it can trigger a lot. There was a moment where I was thinking this was too much, because it gets pretty raw. It's one thing that we all can share, but you forget sometimes and have really pushed down some things that have been with you for so long and that have a lot of pain. So I think that this book for me has really demonstrated that I do still have a lot of work, but I'm also celebrating that I've made a lot of progress too. I personally feel like there's a billboard on my way to Madison and it says enough on it. It's super big letters. Text like, that's right. I am enough. I've been doing all this work for so long. And that truly, you know, Leah was talking earlier, you know, there's a couple statements in here. And for me, you know, finding people, you know, first, certainly recognizing, for me, getting back into the power of God and recognizing that, you know, I'm who He created me to be. And so for me to stop expecting myself and requiring that I keep working hard to be like somebody that I'm not, you know, and finding the ease and comfort and recognizing that I am a whole lot more than I was giving myself credit for. So that's been big. So big.
I love that you say that, Tammy, because I just looked down at my book and which I don't know which chapter I'm in, but I'm on page 57 in the book. And one of the things I had highlighted is assign a meaning that transforms them into peace and empowerment. And right, like we can look at all of the growth we still have to do, or that we see this path of like, I still have so far to go. And right, you talked about, well, I can see how far I've already come, you know, and be able to celebrate that as well. And just that reminder of we give the meaning to our growth journey. So I think that that's where reflection's a huge piece of this too. And that's what, you know, having a group to share what we're reading and learning about gives us the opportunity to reflect and have, you know, that depth and that meaning to whatever is showing up for us, you know, and be able to empower us versus, you know, keep us from moving forward because it's not enough yet. Yeah, I love that you bring up that billboard. So powerful. One word. One word. Worthy. One word. Enough. Wild.
Okay, so I will tell you, one of my little bookmarks fell out. And this is something we read a while ago. And I pulled it out. It says, in life, you don't rise to what you believe is possible. You fall to what you believe you're worthy of. That also struck me to
Yes.
the bone. And then I quickly discovered that as a parent, we perpetuate this by protecting our kids. Our parents did it for us too, kind of oh, no, that's not going to happen for us. We don't get those things, and just kind of orienting yourself with life as you grew older. Certain families would go on trips, right? Oh no, we don't have that kind of money, things like that, but in fact, priorities, like you've discovered as you went on, you're like, well, but that's one example. But to let my kids be free. And then, yes, you do think about all the parents that, and kids would make fun of these kids, but the parents would lead them to believe that they could be the superstar, all-star baseball player, right? And I look back and I was like, gosh, it must have felt so good to be that kid, right? Just instead of like, no, don't bother. You're going to sit on the bench. I sat on the bench. You're just going to be like me, all these things but that worthiness, that why not?
I also really enjoyed our time in chapter 6 when she talked about the lie. I should only be seen when I'm happy. And, as we walked through that journey, we shared many different personal testimonies, but ultimately, that perception of not a lot of strength if you're crying or if you're showing other emotions or if you're showing a struggle, the world shows that as a weakness, and how we can perceive that into that space so many times. But when you're doing some stuff and you're excited about a project and you got this idea and you're so thrilled to get it moving, and then that one person comes through and just kind of wipes it out, but we may allow it, but now we might not allow that to happen. We are one step closer to stepping aside and no, I can be seen in all the phases. People can see me at my worst, they can see me at my best, and everything in between. Any other shares today? We have a couple of minutes left.
I was going to say this chapter really truly resonated with me too. And I still struggle with the idea that I only can share the positive emotions. I was years of being teased as a crybaby. So trying to get beyond that and realize that it's okay to have those emotions. I mentally know it's okay, but I still struggle to show people those emotions. And I feel shame about sharing those emotions. And I'm still working on that. So I'm still a work in progress. But this was a very good chapter. And I try not to be toxically positive, which was another part of this chapter.
I think a lot of times for myself, I look at the outward part and acknowledging that somebody can be so happy in the appearance, but when you learn deep down they're struggling with depression and suicide attempts and other ailments that are just killing them inside, you make it seem like for me, I'm like, well, the challenge that I might be sharing today is not that big of a deal compared to what you might be traveling to. And how can you have that appearance on the outside, but then be so needy on the inside and not being able to share out. You know, you can't verbalize the way you feel. You can't express it in your facial expressions or your emotions. And who said that that was a problem? You know, like, why is that bad to say that? But yet, I know a handful of people through my lifetime that have shared, you don't do that. Well, if I can't do that with you, my own family, then, and my friends, who can I do it with? And I think that's a big part of moving on into the next space and being able to tell myself that I can do those things in front of anybody, because they might be going through the same stuff. They might think I have it all together, and then they see me, and then they're like, oh, hallelujah, Brenda, you know, that helped me out so much.
Yeah, chapter 12, the lie, if I'm me, I won't be loved,
Yep.
is one that, I mean, everything that I'm about is loving yourself more. And, you know, so part of the chapter I highlighted, you know, talks about truly feeling true love and belonging can only come from being loved for who you truly are, right? So the understanding that when we stifle who we are on purpose, when we hide who we are intentionally because we feel there could be rejection or what have you, then we're limiting our own ability to receive love and to have that feeling of belonging and to allow people to see who we are. And there's also a section in this chapter that I loved. It's labeled Reveal the Real. And I highlighted, you stifle human connection when you show up as only part of or completely different from who you authentically are. So just the understanding in this book and how, right, at a soul level, like getting to be real in who we are and understanding that the world needs more of who you are is why I was so like, yes, to this book. So be more of who you are authentically. That's how we connect as a human race. We're all unique. We're all the first. No one's had today like we have today right now. So be you.
So good. Thank you so much, everybody, for
Yeah,
sharing
thank
your
you.
insights and walking through this journey with us. And we will see how everybody's time went outside of our space. Becky.